Alois also led a shady private life. For years, he was married to 2 women at the same time. His marriage to Bridget Dowling, an Irish woman, produced a son, William Patrick Hitler, who, to the great annoyance of the dictator, loved to regale the international press with stories of Uncle Adolf. Uncle was furious and called William Patrick his most loathsome relative.
Here's this nephew named Willy Hitler living in London. His uncle becomes Chancellor of Germany. Within months, Willy shows up in Berlin, basically playing off the Hitler name.
In London, the name Hitler was a liability. In the Third Reich, it could make your career. Hitlers nephew seized his opportunities.
Ich habe ihn nur kennengelernt als William Patrick Hitler und er hieß für mich Herr Hitler. Aus. Weiter nichts. Höfliche Anrede. Ich würde ihn mit Sicherheit nicht als einen intellektuellen Menschen bezeichnen. Er war kleinbürgerlich, nicht mit übermäßig guter Ausbildung und nicht mit guten Kenntnissen.
German culture left him cold. He had other interests to pursue in Berlin.
Er hat abgelehnt, mit mir zur Universität zu gehen. Stattdessen hat er gesagt, wo kann ich ein Mädchen kennenlernen? Und daraus entstand die Idee im Gespräch, dass ich gesagt habe, ja, zum Tanztee. Wenn es um sexuelle Dinge ging, kannte er nicht einwandfreie Ausdrücke, sondern schlechte Ausdrücke. Und die gebrauchte er dann.
Willy had a habit of making foul-mouthed passes at women.
William Patrick Hitler was the classic nephew from hell. He was the bane of Adolf Hitler's life. Hitler had a lot to hide. He had a lot to be embarrassed about. He had a lot to be uncomfortable about, but I don't think there was anyone in his life who was more of a curse upon him than Willy Hitler. He was the nephew that Hitler deserved.
Thanks to his uncle, Willy Hitler got a job at the Reich Credit Bank in Berlin. But this Hitler had no taste for regular work. Willy had other plans. In a letter to his uncle, he threatened to take the Hitler family secrets to the British press unless his personal circumstances improved.
It was a blatant act of blackmail on Willy's part, and the most astonishing thing is that it worked.
How did Willy manage to put pressure on the most powerful man in Europe?
Hitler's expressed concern was that Willy had found proof that there was Jewish blood in the Hitler family veins, which would have been absolutely catastrophic for Hitler. The fact was, Willy's threat, allegedly, was the fact that Willy's father, Alois, had committed bigamy and been charged with it.
A misunderstanding that paid off. For 6 years, Willy lived a carefree life in Hitler's Reich. Adolf Koppensteiner was 6 years old when he lost his parents.
Fürchten tun wir sie heute noch, ganz ehrlich gesagt. Ich habe heute noch über ein wenig Federn und ein wenig Angst.
Und warum?
Ja, warum? Weißt du noch, weil du nicht weißt, was da reinkommt.
It's the fear of having to pay for his great-uncle's crimes, 60 years after the war's end. Only one member of the Hitler family could free himself from the dictator's thrall. His nephew, William Patrick Hitler. He left Germany before the war. In 1939, he and his mother went to New York, and he changed sides.
I believe that Hitler's policy in Europe will not bring any benefit to the human race at all.
Willie knew how to make the most of the situation.
I hope that the American people in this country will not be kidded by my moustache, because after all, my heart is in the right place, and that's the main thing.
Even in exile, these Hitlers wanted to capitalize on their name. Willie's mother wrote a book called My Brother-in-Law Adolf Hitler, and William Patrick went on a lecture tour to hell with Hitler. Willie wrote to President Roosevelt to say he wanted to fight against his uncle. At first, the FBI had him tailed, but then they offered support.
It is Der Fuhrer's nephew, William Patrick Hitler, 32, who came here from England 5 years ago. This will break Uncle Schickeldruber's heart.
As a member of the armed forces, I hope to take an active part in the liquidation of this man, my uncle, who has unleashed such misery upon the world.
After the war, Willie Hitler went into hiding on Long Island. Now he was afraid that being related to the 20th century's greatest criminal might be his undoing.
What Willie ultimately did was to change his name repeatedly. He moved residence repeatedly, and he lived in absolute terror that this past would catch up with him.
And yet he called his first son Alexander Adolf. And his new surname, which we cannot give here, is reminiscent of one of Adolf Hitler's spiritual ideals. William Patrick's children will never reveal their secret. But it is hard to remain completely anonymous. Jeff Furman, a former friend of Willie's youngest son, Howard, learns Howard's true identity for the first time.
Well, I'm glad he changed his name, because I think they would have had a terrible time living virtually anywhere, unfortunately.
Can they escape their past?
He grew out of a piece of history that he wasn't involved with. Then he did a tremendous job at choosing not to tell anybody. And yeah, from what I know of Howard, I believe, if you know, with all of that baggage that his parents brought with them, I think they just came out here and became just an American family like the rest of us.
Two of Willie's sons are gardeners. The third is a psychotherapist. They all keep their silence. A lawyer shields them from all contact.
Alle heute noch lebenden Hitler-Verwandten isolieren sich. Sie beantworten keine Anfragen, mit wenigen Ausnahmen, und halten sich einfach fern von der Öffentlichkeit. Und was sie dadurch machen, sie pflegen den Mythos, den ihr Vorfahre Adolf Hitler aufgebaut hat, weiter fort. Und zwar zwangsläufig.
A life of secrecy.
Es wirkt aber so, als hätten sie den Plan gefasst, die Familienlinie aussterben zu lassen. Der älteste Sohn ist über 50, die anderen sind zwischen 30 und 40. Sie haben alle keine Familie und auch keine Nachkommen. Und das lässt natürlich schon irgendwo die Idee vielleicht erkennen, dass sie nicht vorhaben, diese Familie fortzupflanzen.
A family no one wants to admit to. Angela Raubal lived incognito near Munich until her death in 1949. She left 2 children. Paula Hitler died without issue in 1960. Alois died in 1956. He is buried in Hamburg, together with Hedwig and Erna and Hans Hitler. William Patrick Hitler died in 1987. He is survived by 3 sons who live in the United States. Relatives of Adolf Hitler are alive today in Austria and North America. The shadow of a criminal past will never leave them.